I didn't vanish from the world. I vanished from myself. No one noticed at first. Not my co-workers. Not my friends. Not even my family. Because from the outside, I was still there. I showed up. I smiled. I answered when spoken to. But inside, something had already left. The strange thing about disappearing emotionally is that it feels responsible. You stop dreaming so you can be practical. You stop questioning so you can be stable. You stop feeling so you can survive. I told myself I was growing up. In reality, I was growing quiet. There was no dramatic breakdown. No sudden loss. No moment that screamed, everything is wrong. Just a slow erosion. Like water wearing down stone. When I was younger, I used to imagine my future. Not in detail. Just in feeling. I imagined movement. Curiosity. A sense that my life was going somewhere. Now, my days felt like copies of each other. Wake up. Work. Eat. Sleep. No tension. No chaos. Just repetition. And repetition, I learned, can slowly erase meaning. My job was fine. Not inspiring. Not terrible. Just fine. And fine became my favorite word. How are you? Fine. How's work? Fine. How's life? Fine. But fine is a disguise. It hides the absence of direction. At home, silence grew comfortable. Not peaceful. Predictable. Conversations became short. Plans became routine. Dreams became unnecessary. I stopped talking about the future because I didn't feel connected to it anymore. It felt like something meant for someone else. The first sign that something was wrong came in a moment that should have been simple. My niece asked me what I wanted to be when I was younger. I laughed and said, happy. She tilted her head. Aren't you? The question stayed with me long after she forgot about it. Not because I was unhappy. Because I didn't know the answer. Happiness requires presence. And I wasn't present in my own life anymore. I was functioning. There's a difference. Functioning keeps you alive. Living makes you feel real. I hadn't felt real in a long time. My relationships became polite. Efficient. We talked about responsibilities, not emotions. About tasks, not thoughts. Not because we didn't care. Because caring requires energy. And I had spent mine on survival. One evening, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and noticed something strange. My face looked familiar. But my eyes didn't. They looked distant. Like I was watching myself from far away. That scared me more than any crisis ever could. Because crises end. Disconnection doesn't. I started avoiding mirrors after that. Not consciously. Instinctively. When you don't recognize yourself, you stop looking. My phone was always full of notifications. Messages. Emails. Reminders. But none of them felt personal. Everything felt administrative. Like I was managing a life instead of living it. I didn't have problems. I had absence. Absence of excitement. Absence of curiosity. Absence of emotional movement, and absence is invisible until it becomes heavy. The worst part, no one was worried about me. Because nothing looked wrong. I was reliable. Responsible. Predictable. But predictability had become my prison. I stopped asking questions. Questions like, is this enough for me? Is this who I want to be? Is this the life I chose, or the life I accepted? Acceptance is quiet. Choice is loud. I had accepted everything. One night, I found an old voice message on my phone. My own voice. From years ago. I was laughing. Talking about a plan I never followed through with. I didn't remember the moment. But I remembered the feeling in my voice. Alive. I listened to it 3 times. Not because it was funny. Because it sounded like a stranger. A stranger who used to be me. I realized something painful, I hadn't lost my way. I had stopped walking. Life didn't push me off course. I stepped aside. And when you step aside long enough, the road forgets you. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was empty. And emptiness doesn't scream. It waits. It waits until you finally notice the silence inside your own chest. That's when the fear begins. Not the fear of losing something. The fear of realizing you already did. The fear that you've been present everywhere. Except inside your own life. The question wasn't whether I could still change. The question was whether I still cared enough to try. Because caring hurts. And numbness feels safer. But safer doesn't mean better. It just means quieter. And I had been quiet for far too long. The more I noticed my own absence, the harder it became to ignore it. Once you realize you've been living on autopilot, every routine starts to feel artificial. Every normal day begins to sound like an excuse. I tried to fix it the way people usually do. Small changes. New habits. Healthier food. Longer walks. But nothing touched the real problem. Because the problem wasn't my lifestyle. It was my identity. I didn't know who I was outside of responsibilities anymore. I wasn't a dreamer. I wasn't a risk taker. I wasn't even a failure. I was just useful. Useful to my job. Useful to my family. Useful to the structure of a life that no longer felt personal. One evening, I received a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. An old friend. The kind of friend who knew me before I became quiet. Hey, the message said. I'm in town for a few days. Want to catch up? My first instinct was to say no. Not because I didn't care. Because I didn't know how to show up as myself anymore. But I said yes. Curiosity felt stronger than fear that night. We met in a small cafe near the river. The kind of place that still remembered laughter. He looked older. So did I. But his eyes still had movement in them. Stories. Experiences. Uncertainty. He talked about the risks he had taken. Some worked. Some didn't. But all of them felt alive. Then he asked, do you ever feel like you're just existing instead of living? I didn't answer, because he had named something I had been avoiding. He didn't push. He just nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. That happens when you stop choosing. That sentence followed me home. Not loudly. Quietly. Like a truth that didn't need explanation. That night, I sat in my dark apartment, listening to the city breathe through the window. Cars passing. People laughing somewhere. Life happening. And I felt separate from it. Not lonely. Disconnected. I realized something uncomfortable, my life wasn't empty because nothing was happening. It was empty because nothing was happening to me. I wasn't affected by my own existence anymore. The next morning, I found an old box in the closet. Photos. Notes. Things I had saved without remembering why. In one photo, I was standing on a cliff near the ocean, arms open, laughing into the wind. Not posing. Experiencing. I stared at that image longer than I expected. Not because I missed the place. Because I missed the version of me who felt like the world was worth reacting to. The realization hit harder than I thought it would. I wasn't living in the present. I was surviving inside it. Survival doesn't ask for meaning. It asks for endurance. And endurance had become my only skill. Days passed, but my awareness didn't fade. If anything, it grew louder. Every conversation felt scripted. Every task felt mechanical. Every evening felt identical. I began to notice how often I avoided silence. Music in the background. Videos on my phone. Noise in my ears. Not for entertainment. For distraction. Because silence makes you face yourself. And I didn't like what I saw. One night, I turned everything off. No music. No screen. No light. Just me and the sound of my own breathing. The emptiness felt heavy. Not dramatic. Just real. And in that silence, a thought surfaced that scared me. What if this is all my life will ever be? Not tragic. Not painful. Just flat. I wasn't afraid of death. I was afraid of never truly living before it. The moral dilemma wasn't about quitting my job or changing cities. It was about waking up emotionally. Could I stay comfortable and numb, or could I risk feeling again, because feeling means disappointment. Feeling means uncertainty. Feeling means loss. But it also means meaning. I didn't want to disappear quietly anymore. Not from my life. Not from myself. But knowing what you want doesn't mean you know how to get there. I stood between two versions of existence, one that was safe. One that was alive. And for the first time in years, the safe one felt more dangerous. Because it was slowly erasing me. I didn't need a new life. I needed to return to the one I had abandoned inside myself. The problem was, I didn't know how. The city didn't change. The streets were the same. The people were the same. The noise was the same. But something inside me finally moved. Not forward. Inward. For the first time in years, I stopped trying to fix my life and started trying to feel it. I didn't quit my job. I didn't move to another place. I didn't announce a new beginning. I just stopped running from silence. One evening, I sat alone in my apartment without music, without screens, without distractions. The emptiness was still there. But it didn't feel like a threat anymore. It felt like a message. Emptiness isn't the absence of life. It's the absence of connection to it. And I had been disconnected from myself for a long time. I started asking questions again. Not the big ones. Not the dramatic ones. Simple ones. What did I enjoy today? What made me feel something? What felt real? At first, the answers were small. A conversation that felt honest. A walk without a destination. A moment of laughter that didn't feel forced. But small answers still meant I was listening. Listening to myself. That was new. I realized something important. My life hadn't disappeared. My attention had. I had been present everywhere except inside my own experience. I wasn't broken. I was distant. Distance from yourself feels like numbness. And numbness feels like safety. But safety without presence becomes emptiness. I began to notice the world again. Not as a schedule. Not as a responsibility. As a place where things happen. People laugh. People struggle. People feel. And I let myself feel too. Not intensely. Not dramatically. Just honestly. Some nights, regret still visited me. Not as punishment. As reminder. A reminder that I had spent years surviving instead of living. But regret didn't control me anymore. Because I wasn't numb anymore. I was awake. And being awake hurts sometimes. But it also gives meaning. I stopped telling myself I was fine. I started saying, I'm here. Here in my body. Here in my thoughts. Here in my life. Presence became my new direction. Not success. Not achievement. Presence. I didn't need to become extraordinary. I needed to become involved. In my emotions. In my choices. In my own existence. The strangest part, nothing outside changed. But everything inside did. My life didn't get louder. It got deeper. I wasn't chasing happiness. I was allowing myself to experience reality. And reality, I learned, is enough when you actually show up for it. I didn't disappear from my life anymore. I stepped back into it. Not perfectly. Not bravely. Just consciously. And consciousness is where meaning begins. I don't know what my future looks like. I don't need to. For the first time in years, I'm not living for the future. I'm living inside the present. And the present finally feels like home.